Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Early Tuesday afternoon, the Georgia Bulldogs land the commitment of former UAB safety Adrien Maddox. And safety is probably not the best word to describe Adrien Maddox. I go ahead and just use defensive back chess piece. You turn on some of his UAB stuff and you just see him play all over the football field. I think he excels most at that nickel spot, but this is a guy that you probably want around the line of scrimmage. And now the conversation is, why should Georgia fans feel good about this one? Look, this Georgia staff loved Adrien Maddox. I mean, they were pushing for him very, very hard when he was in the transfer portal. He commits to Florida late Sunday night, and then they're dog on a bone. And they're saying, hey, we really like this kid. We really want him on a roster in 2025. They don't give up on him. And then Tuesday afternoon, they land his commitment. The number one thing that excites me the most is Kirby Smart, this Georgia football staff. They clearly see something in Adrien Maddox that made them want to pursue him hard, and they got their guy. That's where Georgia fans should feel, in my opinion, the most excited. Now, why is Georgia going after so many safeties? I think it starts with you're just going to be young there. It's not necessarily a bad room, but it's pretty inexperienced. It's pretty young. And you're replacing a guy like Malachi Starks. You feel damn good about KJ Bolding. You feel damn good about a couple of players in the back end for Georgia, but it's a relatively young room. And so why does Georgia go and bring Zion Branch? More because Zachariah Branch, but they bring him in. Why did they go get Jaden Harris at Miami? Why did they now bring in Adrien Maddox? I think they wanted a little bit more experience. I think they wanted some competitive depth as well. This is, at least in my opinion, the key to this Georgia Bulldogs program. Why has Georgia been at the top of the sport for the last couple of years? It's just competitive at every position on the football field. If you want to play for Georgia, you got to earn it in spring practice. You got to earn it in fall camp. And then when you get to August 2025, you feel really good about the players that earn their starting positions. They can play some high quality football. And then you talk about winning SEC championships. You talk about making postseason runs. You damn well better be deep. I think Adrien Maddox, I don't know if he's a surefire starter for Georgia, but he definitely provides some much needed experience and some much needed depth as well at the position. And when you get a guy that can do so many different things that Adrien Maddox can, whether he's playing nickel, whether he's playing box safety, or whether he's playing free safety, that helps your depth because he can kind of plug and play at a couple of different spots. Now, I want to get into Adrien Maddox a little bit more, talk about what intrigues me about this kid, and then talk about where Georgia goes from here in the transfer portal. Before we get into it, as always, to the Georgia fans, a blast talking this team in 2024. Y'all know I have a blast talking this team on the recruiting trail. The amount of support y'all continue to show to the fellas, it means the absolute world. Appreciate you guys. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Appreciate you guys. Without further ado, let's get into Adrien Maddox. And again, what jumps out to me the most is this kid plays everywhere. And you turn on the film from his time at UAB, nickel, box safety, free safety, 6'3", 200 pounds, can run relatively well. Obviously has the frame to support the run game. There's just a lot of things that Adrien Maddox can bring to this Georgia secondary. And now you start getting, you kind of have the ability to get creative and say, hey, what do our best 5 defensive backs look like? And where does Adrien Maddox fit in? When you have guys that can do multiple different things, it gets a lot easier to start playing your best players. Adrien Maddox is not big, kind of what Malachi Starks brought to Georgia last year. I mean, really, really good safety, but also could play the nickel really well, arguably just as good at playing nickel. And it's all of a sudden opens up all the possibilities Georgia wants in terms of how do we get KJ Bolden on the field? How do we get a guy like Jonell Aguero on the field or Dan Jackson on the field in certain situations? When you have a guy that can do all these different things, it gets easier to play your best players. I think that's what Adrien Maddox brings most importantly. And then second, just a little bit of experience. I mean, you look at the Georgia safety room, I think Georgia fans are saying, hey, well, are we expecting attrition at the safety spot? Yeah, Malachi Starks moving on. I think you want to try to replace him the best you can, but it's just a young room. And so you look at why Georgia's bringing in a guy like Adrien Maddox or Jaden Harris or Zion Branch, all 3 of which certainly could start for Georgia, but I don't know if I'm picking them to be bona fide starters. They're bringing in the much needed experience that I think Georgia needs in that room. Now, is Georgia done at the safety spot? I would probably say yes. where are they going next? I think the biggest name is Noah Thomas. And we talked about it. This is the benefit of being Kirby Smart in Georgia. We don't have to overturn this roster going into 2025. There's a lot of really good football players on this team. When you recruit the way Georgia does at the high school ranks, you don't have to bring in 25 plus guys in the portal. You just got to start filling in the cracks. I mean, I think the biggest crack that we saw from Georgia in 2024 was we just didn't have enough playmakers on the outside. You bring in Zachariah Branch. You talk about playmakers. You certainly got one with him. Noah Thomas is another guy that, again, very similar to how we talk about Zachariah Branch. I'm going to say the same thing for Noah Thomas. Zachariah Branch has been very solid for USC and at times very, very good. But I think there is still another couple of steps that Zachariah Branch can bring. I would say the same thing for Noah Thomas. I mean, Noah Thomas at 6'6", 200 pounds, three-sport athlete coming out of high school. This kid is dripping with intriguing traits, the definition of a matchup nightmare, but the consistency, I think, can take a step in the right direction. So not only do you have the ability to bring in a guy like Noah Thomas, who unquestionably is an immediate upgrade to the wide receiver room, you're also getting a guy that can potentially be such a difference maker for Georgia in 2025, very similar to Zachariah Branch. Now, are Zachariah Branch and Noah Thomas the best wide receivers in the country right now? I'd probably say no, but they certainly can be in 2025. And at the end of the day, you are getting difference makers on the outside that you just did not have last year. That's what excites me most about Georgia is when you have the complete roster or almost complete roster that Georgia has, you can really focus your attention in the transfer portal at just one or two spots, where there's a lot of other teams that don't recruit the way Georgia does. I mean, they got to bring guys all over the place, and it's hard to get the top players at each position when you got to go out and get 20 plus guys. So I think Georgia's in a good spot. You bring in Noah Thomas, all of a sudden you're feeling dang good about the wide receiver room. You're feeling good about the experience and depth in the safety room. We're starting to check off boxes, and I think that's where it starts for Georgia in this transfer portal cycle. We'll sign out there. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. Again, if y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Appreciate you guys. We'll talk to y'all later.